first off, how is the brain tied into chronic pain?
Mhm. Yeah, when we look at chronic pain, we have to look at it from, again, a multifactorial viewpoint. Often, what is dysregulated in a chronic pain cycle is dysfunction in the central nervous system. So the central nervous system includes our brain and our spinal cord, and we look at of course, there's different structures in the brain that can be more vulnerable or more dysregulated that are responsible for these chronic pain cycles. But to take a step back and not to get too in the weeds with the neurobiology, we want to look at, as I mentioned before, we look at chronic illness in the perspective of really environmental toxicity and pathogens. And we look at what's called a neurotoxin, right? Because a neurotoxin is going to be toxic to the nervous system. So not only the brain, the spinal cord, but also the neurons. And so anything that is a neurotoxin can damage a nerve cell. It can also affect communication, so that breakdown in communication between neurons, because that will disrupt signals and create patterns that create dysfunction in the body. So we're looking at neurotoxins, and then our lens is also looking at the functioning of the autonomic nervous system. And so the autonomic nervous system is that part of our nervous system that's automatic, and it's these balances of two branches called the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And often when we're in a chronic illness state, we're in the gear of a sympathetic state rather than this parasympathetic state. And so you might have heard, so sympathetic is fight or flight, parasympathetic is rest and digest. And so we need, in order to heal the body, we need to really activate our parasympathetic nervous system. And so we look at neurotoxicity, and I can go into this more, how that affects not only the makeup of our brain, but also how that can affect our autonomic nervous system and create these dysfunctional patterns. And I'm excited to share, especially if you're struggling out there and you're in a chronic pain pattern and you're really at a loss of why you're in this state, we have to not only look at the neurotoxicity and how what are the root causes of created some of the dysfunction in the nervous system. But it's an exciting time too, because there is a whole host of resources that really employ these concepts of what we call neuroplasticity. So I like to think about recovering from chronic pain or chronic illness is not only a detoxification strategy, but also a rewiring strategy. And how do we restore and create new patterns and create, really harness this capability of the brain to repattern and to rewire, so we don't have to settle and say that we're in the stuck pattern. And the rewiring takes work, and there's so many wonderful tools that I can share to put you on that path to do that. But I look at these in combination. I think they need to be done together. I don't think we can really heal as fully as we want without both perspectives.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So I'd love it if you could share some of those strategies for everyone watching so that we can, get some ideas. Obviously, once again, doing all of these things, right? You're not just singling out one or two, but what are some suggestions you have for people?
Yeah, I think what's really exciting and foundational to understand first is how the brain is naturally able to detoxify. And so our brains do this naturally. So, we are, naturally made up that our brain is going to be exposed to not only metabolic waste that we naturally produce by normal, byproducts of metabolism, but of course there's going to be environmental exposures. I believe that we're in a heightened environmental state and that we have way too many exposures starting from way too young of an age. And that's why we're seeing such, high rates of chronic illness, especially in our children. However, our brain is meant to, handle our environment and to detoxify. And so what that is, and it's a newly found system. So I believe in 2015 at University of Virginia, where I went to school, they found the lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system is what we call the glial dependent lymphatic system. It's the lymph system in the brain that only really works at night. And so our brains actually shrink 60% of size at night to make room for this flow of lymph that basically comes in and bathes the neurons with nutrition and then removes waste and amyloid beta and toxicity. And then that lymph flows out of the brain, but it has to go through this pathway through the cribriform plate, which is, in the base of the nose. It also goes through the tonsils, which is this area called Waldeyer's ring, which is an important lymphatic tissue for the brain and the gut. And then, of course, it also goes along the veins. And so this area here is really important in our neck because there's so much traffic going on in the body. So we have blood flow going into the brain. We also have blood flow coming out of the brain. We have branches of the vagus nerve. We have the thyroid. We have the tonsils. So we're always looking at how do we optimize this lymph drainage, because it's foundational to recovering anyone's neurological health. And it's also a preventative strategy. Unfortunately, there are only, Alzheimer's and dementias on the rise, neurological diseases are on the rise. And so we all want to not only, if you want to recover from a chronic illness, this is important, but if you also want to prevent any neurological decline, our brain is only as healthy as it can really get rid of waste. And this happens at bedtime. And so this really heightens the importance of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Mechanism to clear our brain of toxicity. And, nature is so wise, we know about our pineal gland, right? And our pineal gland produces melatonin, which is really important for our circadian rhythm. So melatonin helps us have sleep at night. However, it also is a potent neuroprotective antioxidant, and melatonin in and of itself actually detoxifies the brain. So it not only gets us in a sleep state where our brain can have the lymphatic system working well, but it also helps protect neurons. And we actually use melatonin often as a detox agent, because I believe, modern life, we're living in a melatonin deficient time. We're exposed to all this artificial light and blue light, and the pineal gland is also very vulnerable to environmental toxins because it's not as protected from the blood-brain barrier. So things like fluoride and aluminum and glyphosate and what have you also impact our melatonin production. So it's all interrelated. And so I think it's a really important concept to understand, to lay the foundation for anyone's good health. We need to sleep, but we need to sleep for not only to feel good, but also so our brains can actually self-clean at night.